Welcome back to my Stevenson Weekender Sailboat build. In this episode I'm going to get varnish on the rub rails and paint on the hull. All the products you'll see me using in this video are from TotalBoat. I'm not sponsored by them or affiliated in any way, but I chose to use their products after watching a lot of other boat builders on YouTube. And I have to say that by the end of the project I was pleased with the results. So I started with this Halcyon Clear varnish for the rub rails. My thought process here was that I would apply this varnish to the mahogany rub rails first in case I get any bleed through of the hull paint later on. I was hoping that the varnish would protect the wood and seal it so that if I did get any other paint onto the wood later it'd be easier to get off. In all, I believe I put on 5 or 6 coats of the varnish, and then once it was thoroughly dried I removed the tape. Now for the rest of the hull I'm going to be using a HVLP spray gun. So the first step was to get as much of the dust from the past multiple months of work cleaned out of the shop. Next I used masking tape to cover all of the recently varnished rub rails. And here's a quick look at the setup I'll use to spray the paint on. I'm fortunate to have access to this fairly large capacity air compressor. And the spray gun I'm using is this relatively cheap HVLP gun from Harbor Freight. And to remove the water from the compressed air, I have this air drying system that has 2 air filters and a pressure regulator. My first step was to paint the entire boat with this TotalProtect epoxy primer. This was a learning process, and this gun from Harbor Freight came with 2 tips. The first one I'm trying here is a 1.4 millimeter tip, and as you can see I just was not getting very good coverage. In a few seconds I'll switch to a 1.8 millimeter tip, and that worked much better. For those interested, I believe I'm spraying around 30 psi at the gun. I believe in this shot I had switched over to that 1.8 millimeter tip, and you can see how much better coverage I'm getting. So after the first coat of primer was on, you could really see the pinholes that I'd left in the fairing compound and epoxy. So it took some time to go back and fill those in everywhere. So after this new fairing compound had time to set up, I went back and sanded all that and re-cleaned the boat, and then sprayed on 2 more coats of the TotalProtect barrier coat primer. I got all the spars also sprayed with the primer. Everything below that lower rub rail is going to get coated with the Krypton Bottom paint. So I got the upper levels masked off and then began spraying on this bottom paint with the same paint sprayer I'd used before, still with that 1.8 millimeter tip size. The rest of the boat and the spars will be painted with this WetEdge from TotalBoat. My kids decided that they liked this Kingston Gray color for the spars and the rudder, and then we chose the Blue-Glo White for the rest of the boat. So after I'd sprayed on 3 coats of the top paint, I sanded with 220 grit and then sprayed 1 more coat. So after weeks of prepping and painting, we finally got to remove the masking tape and see the final result. Overall, I believe it turned out great, and I'm very pleased with the result. I love the high gloss of this topside paint. Well, this ended up being a fairly short video, but there's only so much painting and watching paint dry that one can film. I'm getting excited as I'm getting closer to finishing this thing. I've already started working on the windows, and that'll be in an upcoming video soon. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you've not yet subscribed, please do so. And I hope you'll join me next time as we continue to build the Stevenson Weekender Sailboat.